June 6, 1944. The image is burned into our collective memory, thanks to countless films and documentaries. The landing craft ramps drop, and soldiers are met by a wall of German fire. A desperate, bloody struggle for every inch of sand. The hell of Omaha Beach, where the Allied invasion almost failed. But what if I told you this is only one small part of the story? What if the key to D-Day's success lies on a different beach, in a chapter of history that has been almost completely ignored? Imagine this. While American forces were still pinned down, fighting for their lives on the water's edge, just a few miles down the coast, British soldiers were already miles inland. They had smashed through Hitler's defences, captured their primary objectives, and were linking up with paratroopers deep inside enemy territory. This wasn't a miracle. It wasn't because they faced weaker opponents. In fact, they faced one of Hitler's elite panzer divisions. Their victory was owed to a secret weapon, a fleet of bizarre, almost comical-looking tanks so strange they were nicknamed Hobart's Funnies. These were no ordinary machines. They were monster-like creations designed for one purpose: to solve the deadly puzzles of the Atlantic Wall. This is the untold story of D-Day, the story of how British ingenuity and a collection of mechanical beasts achieved the impossible, breaking the unbreakable wall with shocking speed and efficiency. And in this video, we will uncover why this incredible triumph, the true key to the invasion's success, has remained hidden in the shadow of the American narrative for so long. To understand the genius of the British plan, you must first understand the monster they were facing. The Atlantic Wall was not just a line of defences. It was a legend, a myth forged in steel and concrete by the Nazi propaganda machine. It stretched for nearly 3,000 miles, from the northern tip of Norway all the way down to the border of Spain. It was sold to the world and to the German soldiers who manned it as Fortress Europe, an impenetrable barrier that would smash any invasion fleet and drown its armies in the English Channel. And the man tasked with making this myth a reality was one of Germany's most capable commanders, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. When Rommel took command of the defences in late 1943, he was horrified by how incomplete they were. He immediately began a frantic program of construction, transforming the coastline into a multi-layered death trap. He believed the invasion had to be stopped on the beaches in the first few hours. He famously said the first 24 hours of the invasion will be the most important, for the Allies as well as for Germany. It will be the longest day. Rommel's philosophy was simple: make the very water and sand a weapon. The first layer of his defense started underwater. Thousands of steel obstacles, known as Element Sissi or Belgian gates, were topped with mines, designed to rip the bottom out of landing craft at high tide. Closer to shore were fields of sharpened logs and poles, angled towards the sea, many also rigged with explosives. He called these Rommel's Spargel, or Rommel's asparagus. Any soldier surviving the journey to the beach would then face the next layer of hell. The sand itself was seeded with millions of mines, anti-tank mines to destroy vehicles and anti-personnel mines to maim and kill infantry. And watching over this entire kill zone was the heart of the war, a chain of thousands of concrete bunkers and pillboxes. These were engineering marvels of their own, with walls of reinforced concrete several feet thick, often buried in the earth or disguised as seaside homes. They housed machine guns, anti-tank cannons, and mortars, all positioned for interlocking fields of fire. This meant there was no safe approach. Moving in any direction would expose a soldier to fire from multiple angles. Behind these frontline bunkers were heavy artillery batteries, capable of hurling massive shells miles out to sea, targeting the invasion fleet itself. The Allies knew all of this. Their intelligence, gathered by spies, aerial reconnaissance, and the French resistance, painted a terrifying picture. So, how do you attack the unbreakable wall? The American plan for their sectors, Utah and Omaha, was a strategy of overwhelming force. The idea was to use the world's greatest air and naval armada to bombard the defenses into dust before the first soldier even set foot on the sand. Thousands of bombers and hundreds of warships were to pound the coast, shattering the concrete and stunning the defenders. Then, waves of brave infantry would storm ashore, secure the beachhead with sheer numbers and courage, and push inland. It was a plan built on American industrial might and the incredible bravery of its soldiers. On Utah Beach, this plan worked relatively well, thanks to good luck and a weaker German defense. But on Omaha Beach, it was a catastrophe. Thick clouds caused the bombers to miss their targets completely. The German defenses were untouched. The soldiers landing there met the full horrifying power of Rommel's perfectly designed killing field. It was a near disaster that was only saved by the heroic, almost superhuman actions of small groups of soldiers fighting for their lives. Omaha proved that Rommel was right. The wall could and would bleed an army dry on the beaches. This brings us to the British and Canadian beaches, Gold, Juno, and Sword. It is a common misconception that their task was somehow easier. This is completely false. The defenses they faced were just as strong, and in some areas, even stronger than at Omaha. And lurking just behind their coastline was a threat the Americans did not have to face on day one: a full-strength, battle-hardened Panzer Division. This was the 21st Panzer Division. These were not conscripts or old men. They were veterans of the war in North Africa, an experienced armoured force equipped with tanks and mobile artillery. Their specific job was to wait for the Allied landing, and once the invaders were stuck on the beach, to storm forward and drive them back into the sea in a devastating counterattack. So the British were not only attacking a fortress, they were attacking a fortress with a hornet's nest right behind it. A frontal assault like the one at Omaha would be suicide. They knew that courage and numbers alone would not be enough. They had to find a different way. They needed to outsmart the wall, not just throw bodies at it. The solution they found was born from the mind of a brilliant, eccentric, and previously disgraced British general, a man whose strange ideas were about to change the course of the war. The architect of Britain's secret weapon was Major General Percy Hobart. Hobart was a fascinating figure, a true military maverick. He was a pioneer of tank warfare, a brilliant but difficult man whose unconventional ideas often clashed with the rigid thinking of the British military leadership. In fact, his superiors found him so difficult to work with that he was forced into early retirement in 1940. Demoted, he found himself serving as a local defense volunteer, essentially a corporal in the Home Guard. It was a humiliating fall from grace for one of the Army's most forward-thinking minds. But thankfully for the Allies, Winston Churchill was a great admirer of Hobart's work. Churchill recognized that the D-Day landings would require radical new thinking, and he personally intervened to bring Hobart back from the wilderness. He gave Hobart a monumental task: create a specialized armored division that could solve the unique engineering problems of an amphibious assault. Hobart was given command of the 79th Armored Division, and he turned it into his personal laboratory of war. He gathered a team of engineers and visionaries and told them that no idea was too strange, no concept too wild. Their job was to build machines to conquer every single one of Rommel's deadly obstacles. The collection of bizarre and wonderful tanks they created became known as Hobart's Funnies, and they were the key to unlocking the Atlantic Wall. Let's look at these mechanical monsters. The first problem was the millions of mines buried in the sand. Sending men with metal detectors to clear them under machine gun fire would be a massacre. Hobart's solution was the Sherman Crab. This was a standard Sherman tank fitted with a giant rotating drum in front, from which dozens of heavy steel chains were suspended. As the tank drove forward, the drum would spin at high speed, whipping the chains against the ground with incredible force. The chains would beat the earth, deliberately setting off any mines in the tank's path. The explosions would destroy the chains, which were designed to be easily replaced, but the tank and its crew would remain safe inside. The Crab could clear a safe lane through a minefield at a steady walking pace, all while firing its main cannon and machine guns to support the infantry following behind it. It was a terrifying, noisy, and brutally effective mine-clearing system. The next challenge was the concrete bunkers. A standard tank shell might just bounce off their thick walls. Infantry would have to get dangerously close to throw grenades or satchel charges inside. Hobart's solution was far more terrifying. He created the Churchill Crocodile. This was a heavily armoured Churchill tank that towed a separate armoured trailer filled with 400 gallons of flammable liquid. A pipe ran from the trailer through the tank to a nozzle at the front that replaced the hull machine gun. On the commander's order, this nozzle could spew a jet of liquid fire over 100 yards, drenching a bunker or trench in burning fuel. The psychological effect of the crocodile was immense. Often, the mere sight of one approaching was enough to make German defenders surrender. For those who didn't, it was an unimaginably horrific weapon, capable of incinerating a bunker's occupants in seconds. But Hobart's genius went even further. He knew the assault would face countless other physical barriers. What if the tanks got bogged down in the soft, wet sand of the beaches? For this, he invented the bobbin tank. This was a Churchill tank that carried a giant reel of canvas matting on its front. As it moved forward, it would unroll this 10-foot-wide canvas carpet over the sand, creating a stable road for the vehicles following behind it. What about the high sea walls that lined parts of the coast, blocking the path inland? Hobart created the small box girder bridge, a tank that could carry and lay a 30-foot assault bridge over a wall or a ditch in under a minute. And to smash open the concrete defences, there was the AVR, the Armoured Vehicle Royal Engineers. This was another Churchill tank, but its main cannon was replaced with a massive, short-barreled mortar called a petard. The petard fired a huge, 40-pound charge known as the Flying Dustbin. It was not an elegant weapon. Its range was short, and it had to be reloaded from outside the tank. But a single hit from a flying dustbin could crack open a concrete pillbox like a nut. The 79th Armoured Division was a toolbox of mechanical solutions for every problem the Germans could create. These weren't just a few experimental prototypes. The British built hundreds of them. The plan was not to hope for the best, but to engineer success. While the American strategy relied on crushing the enemy with bombardment and bravery, the British plan was to systematically dismantle the Atlantic Wall piece by piece, with the right tool for every job. It was a strategy of brains, not just brawn. And on the morning of June 6th, this circus of strange machines was about to put on its deadly show. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, the Allied fleet appeared off the coast of Normandy like a vast grey city rising from the sea. The naval bombardment began, a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the Atlantic Wall. On Gold and Sword beaches, the British sectors, the first things to hit the sand were not men, but machines. The specialised landing craft opened their ramps, and Hobart's Funnies churned into the surf, leading the assault. Imagine the sight from a German bunker. You have survived the naval shelling, and you are peering through your machine gun slit, ready to unleash a storm of fire on the incoming infantry. But what you see is something from a nightmare. A fleet of monstrous tanks is crawling out of the water. Some are whipping the sand in front of them into a frenzy of explosions. Others are laying down their own roads. One of them is pointing a strange, huge cannon at your bunker. This was not the invasion they had been trained to fight. The Sherman crabs went to work immediately, moving steadily up the beach, their flails spinning violently. They carved safe lanes through the minefields that Rommel had so carefully laid. The sound alone was terrifying. The roar of the tank engine mixed with the constant sharp crack of exploding mines. Behind them, the infantry and standard Sherman tanks could advance with confidence, knowing the path ahead was clear of hidden death. When the assault troops reached the formidable sea walls and other concrete obstacles, the AVREs moved up. They lumbered forward, got into position, and fired their flying dustbins. The massive charges struck the bunkers with devastating force, blasting open holes in the concrete and stunning the defenders inside. Infantrymen would then rush forward to finish the job. For the most stubborn German positions, the ones that refused to surrender, the ultimate solution was called in: the crocodile. The flamethrower tanks would crawl towards a pillbox and, with a terrifying whoosh, unleash a torrent of fire. The effect was absolute. It was a weapon that broke not just fortifications, but the will of the soldiers inside them. The system worked with brutal clockwork precision. The Funnies were the armoured battering ram that smashed the door down, allowing the main force to pour through the gap. On Gold Beach, the British 50th Division was tasked with capturing a heavily defended stretch of coastline and pushing inland to seize the town of Bayeux. Thanks to the Funnies clearing the way, they were off the beach and advancing rapidly within hours. They faced stiff resistance, including from elements of the elite 352nd Infantry Division, the same unit that was causing so much devastation on Omaha Beach. Yet, the British overcame them. By the end of the day, they were on the verge of capturing all their major objectives, having pushed nearly 6 miles inland. On Sword Beach, the situation was even more critical. This beach was the closest to the city of Caen, a key objective for the entire invasion. It was also right on the doorstep of the 21st Panzer Division. The British 3rd Division had to land, break through the defences, and link up with British paratroopers who had heroically captured key bridges, including the famous Pegasus Bridge hours earlier. The assault on Sword Beach was a textbook example of the British combined arms strategy. The Funnies cleared the beach exits, AVREs smashed bunkers, and crocodile flamethrowers neutralised the most stubborn resistance. Within less than an hour of the first wave landing, the beach was secure, and tanks and infantry were moving inland. The speed of the advance was stunning. By early afternoon, elements of the British forces had linked up with the paratroopers at Pegasus Bridge, securing a vital flank of the entire Normandy beachhead. This rapid breakthrough completely disrupted the German plan. The 21st Panzer Division, which was supposed to charge down to the coast and annihilate the invaders while they were still stuck on the sand, was caught off guard. By the time they were able to organise a major counterattack, it was too late. The British were already off the beaches, had established their own defensive positions, and had brought their powerful anti-tank guns ashore. The German panzers charged, but they were met by a wall of British steel. The counterattack failed. The Hornet's nest had been neutralised before it could even properly sting. By the end of the longest day, the contrast was stark. While Omaha Beach was still a chaotic and bloody battleground, the British and Canadian forces on Gold, Juno, and Sword had achieved a stunning success. They had landed on heavily defended shores, faced down an elite armoured division, and pushed further inland than any other Allied force. They had done so with significantly fewer casualties than their American comrades. This wasn't because they were luckier or fought harder. It was because they had a better plan, and they had the right tools for the job. They had Hobart's Funnies. So why has this incredible story, the story of British ingenuity and the mechanical marvels that broke the Atlantic Wall, been so overshadowed in popular history? The answer is complex. Part of it lies in the sheer, visceral drama of Omaha Beach. The narrative of near disaster, of courage against impossible odds, is an incredibly powerful one, and it naturally became the focus of Hollywood and popular storytelling. The American contribution to the war was immense, and its story deserves to be told. But the quiet, engineered efficiency of the British success on Gold and Sword beaches, while militarily brilliant, made for a less dramatic tale. There were no last-ditch charges, no desperate scrambles for survival. There was simply a superior plan, executed with precision. Another reason is that the 79th Armored Division was a secret, specialized unit. After its job on D-Day was done, its strange tanks were distributed among other units as needed, and the division was eventually disbanded. It never fought as a single formation again, and its legacy became fragmented, a collection of footnotes in the history books rather than a celebrated chapter. But the lesson of Hobart's Funnies is more important today than ever before. It is a timeless testament to a powerful truth, that the greatest walls, the most fearsome fortresses, are not broken by brute force alone. They are broken by innovation, by creativity, and by the courage to think differently. When a brutal empire builds what it believes is an invincible wall of steel and propaganda, when it relies on sheer mass and terror, it always underestimates its greatest foe, the ingenuity of a people fighting for their freedom. The story of Hobart's Funnies is the story of David versus Goliath. It's proof that a clever plan, innovative technology, and an unbreakable spirit can shatter the might of a tyrant. It's a timeless reminder that freedom has its own secret weapons, and they are forged not in factories, but in the minds of those who refuse to be conquered. The real victory on D-Day was not just taking a beach. It was proving that a free and open society, with its eccentrics, its mavericks, and its wild ideas, could outthink and outfight the rigid, brutal conformity of a dictatorship. The spirit of innovation in the face of tyranny is a story that repeats throughout history. If you believe in the power of these stories, support our channel by liking this video and subscribing to Indomitable History. Now we want to hear from you. What other secret weapons from history, technological or tactical, do you think deserve their own story? Let us know in the comments below.